Good morning, everyone. It's Ann. I'm going to go ahead and leave the banner up for just a little bit as we get started here. Let's see. I think we're in the right spots. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to leave this up for a little bit till our timer counts down, and then I'll put the camera on and we'll get started. So if you're new, welcome. And here we go. Uh-oh. I'm trying to find oh, there it is. Trying to find a video today. Oh, now we get double me. Let's turn my volume down. There we go. All right. Good morning, Marty and Sharon and Britt. Welcome, welcome. Anna, welcome. Let me move my coffee out of the way so I do not spill it as I get in position here today. Hope everybody's doing well. Good morning, Kay. All right, I'm just trying to warm up my hands, my fingers. I don't know why they're cold. It's sunny outside, but I think it's a little chilly today. Good morning from Kentucky. Hi, Sharon and Sweden. Hi, MT. Welcome. All right, so we hang out here for just a little bit till the top of the hour, and then I go ahead and put the, I think I'm a little off on the timing, so I'll probably put it on a little bit here. I'll put the screen on so you can see it. Hi, Jackie and Janice. Welcome. And Kathy. Anne. Let's see who else. Susan. Marja, welcome. Recognize a lot of you. Well, you have a moment to get your coffee, water. Oh, and you know what? I didn't post the notes for today, but they're very simple, so I will post them afterwards. Oh, Terry in the office. Hi, Terry. Thank you for that. I didn't know who you were. Oh, boy. All right, so here we go. Oh, just a little bit more. Hi, June. Welcome. Normally, I post the Skill Builder class notes, but today, for some reason, I was talking on the phone with another educator, and I didn't get them posted, but it was just a list of what I was going to talk about today. So I will post it afterwards, and you'll be fine on that. Hi, Vicki and Diane. Incognito, yes. Oh, here we go. So let me put the screen on so you can see me, and we'll get started. Here we go. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to Skill Builder 18. I can't believe it. And my name's Ann Hein. I am the embroidery software specialist for Janome. It's a big title, big shoes, and I'm trying to fill it. So we'll see how we go. So welcome. Today we're going to be covering applique and different ways you can do applique in Artistic Digitizer. So I'm going to show you some different things there. And I have covered this a couple of times, but I know we have a lot of new people. We have the free trial going on right now, so that's good. You can, if you're just watching and you don't have the software and you want to try it, in the USA and Canada, you can sign up on the janome.com webpage through the 15th, and then the software is going to be available until the end of May for you to play with. And then also, that's USA and Canada. Also, Australia is doing it. They have a sign up going on, and the UK has a sign up going on. And I did hear that France has one too. So we have quite a few countries doing this. And if it's not in your country, you just speak with your representatives and let them know that this is what you're interested in. And, sometimes it's the squeaky wheel that gets things moving. Anyways, so I do have my iPad up to the side here, so I can always take a peek and see if there's any questions, and I try to answer them live if I can. If not, I come back afterwards. I usually take lunch, and then I come back, and I answer questions at that point. So if I miss your question, post it a second time. If I don't answer it afterwards, you can either PM me or post it to the page, and we'll be happy to answer it. I don't want any questions to go by without being answered. So let me see who's here today. Oh, there's Amy. Hello, Amy. That's who I was talking to, was Amy. We were catching up on a few things. Let's see, we have Vicki and Diane and Jean. Let's see who else. Ellen is here. And Cheryl, welcome. Lisa, welcome. Teresa, Annika, Christine. So welcome, everyone. All right. So I'm going to talk about applique, and I want to show you a couple of samples of applique. And I'm going to start with my giant one because this is really my most fun one. This is the the Swedish horse that's in our sewing machine, in our embroidery machine. And normally he's little. He's probably like 5 by 5, something like that. And I just wanted to make him large for a pillow. So doing applique is a great way to do it because instead of having all of this stitched, I have fabric in there now, which saves thread, saves time on the machine, and doesn't make my design bulky. And that's the thing about doing applique, is if you have something very large that you're working on, if you make those large areas applique, then you don't have to have so much thread in there. And you can layer. I'm going to show you layering some designs on top of your applique, how you do that. So that's it's a good thing to remember when you're working. Maybe you want to put a giant letter on a book bag or a tote bag or something like that, and you can use a nice fabric in there instead of having having the stitches. And then you can always stitch over it with decorative stitches that's in the software. There's lots of things available for you to do. You can be really, really creative with all of that. So let me show you another one. And some of you have seen these. I have, I keep trying to make new ones, and I slowly get there. So this is one, and here I stitched on top of my applique. You can see that, same as the horse. So this is an applique, and if you don't know, if you haven't done an in the hoop applique, typically an applique comes with a placement line, so it'll stitch the placement line, and then the machine will stop. And then you'll put your fabric over that, and the machine will stitch again. That's the tack down. And then you trim it with scissors, or maybe you used a cutting machine and you cut the shape so you don't have to cut it, but it would already be in there. And I'm going to cover that part too. And then the final part is doing the outline stitch on there, and you have some choices on what kind of stitch you'd like. So here's the little flower pot that I did, and you can see the heart has a satin stitch, and the leaves I used a decorative stitch. I believe that's a decorative stitch on top of my satin stitch, and then I satin stitched the bottom part too. And then I used some ambiance quilting in Echo to go around it. So you can really be very, very creative. This one here, I've had this hanging behind me before. Let me turn it on this side too. This is done in the cut. I cut all these shapes, all the circles, and in the Artistic Edge cutter, and then I applied just decorative stitches to them to hold them down on the fabric instead of satin stitches. So let me show you some of the ones on the other side. Here we go. So you can do some really fun things. This one here, I combined stitches. And this is more of a raw edge applique where I didn't totally cover the edge, but I did use a fusible on there, like Steam-A-Seam 2 or something like that. So it fused it on to hold it in place, and then I did my stitching. So I didn't, it was not going to ravel off as much. And that's an option too on that part of it. So let me double check over here. All right, so no questions so far, so that's good. So I'm going to switch to the software just briefly here to show you what I call the anatomy of applique, which is your placement, your placement, your tack down, and then your final stitch out. And I have an example or two to show you on that. And then we're going to go through and I'm going to show you how to use the applique feature. We have an applique tab in properties, so it makes it very easy. So we're going to do one like that, and I'm going to show you how to make one from scratch too. So if you didn't want to use the applique tab, if you wanted to create those lines yourself, you're welcome to do that. We're going to work on a children's art. One of our list members I helped with last year with this children's artwork, and I think it's a perfect example of something that could be converted to an applique because it's big and there's a lot of stitching in the middle, and I'm going to show you how you deal with things that are layered on top of it, like I did for my spool guy, and maybe I'll bring him down. I think he's sitting up there on the shelf, so I'd have to get it when I put the camera in a different direction. So when you layer, it's a little different. There's some things that happen, and you sort of have to do what I call some trickery, some wizardry when you're doing it. We're going to work with a ready-made applique, something that you might find out in the marketplace that comes with an SVG file that you can use as a cut file with your cutter. And then I'm going to do a ready-made applique that didn't have a cut file and how you could create one. And also, I'm going to show you how to, and we've kind of covered it with the children's artwork, but if you have an embroidery design, like I had the horse, and how you would turn that into an applique if you didn't want to stitch that part of it, or maybe you enlarged it or something like that. So I'm going to give you some options with applique so you can play with those. All right. Oh, finally found me. Thank you, Rachel. So I hope I didn't confuse everyone. And you guys I kept checking to see if anybody popped on. This morning, I got a notice that my live was at 10 o'clock. And I went, that's never at 10 o'clock. How did that happen? So I think when I was entering it in the events, in the graphic, I always put the time. But down below, you can set the time. And I set the time, but I had to go back and forth because I was fixing something. So I think when I went back, I didn't reset the time. So that's why part of it said 10 a.m. So just disregard that. This one will always be at 11 on there. All right, so let's put the software on and we'll go from there. Let me see if I can find it. There we go. All right, and I got to move my little inner screen here to the side. All right, so let's start out with an applique, sort of your standard applique, and I'm going to show this one here. This is a one from Kimberbell, and it's I think it's their household thing, or it's got laundry and laundry. There's one about the sewing room and so forth. So this little part right here, the dress form, this is the applique portion of it. So it's not filled in. And when you look in your, over here in your sequence, you'll find it right here. So this one here is your placement. And always when you do applique, all your lines are a different color. That doesn't mean you have to change the thread in your machine. It just means the machine will read each color and stop between them so you can do the things that you need to do. Oh, Janine, yes, I do have notes, but I forgot to post them. And it's really just listing what I was talking about today. So I will post them after class, and I apologize for that. I got a little distracted this morning with some other things happening here. So this is your tack down. Well, this is your placement, I'm sorry. And then this would be your tack down. And then this one does some embroidery, and then it finally finishes up here. So in slow redraw, let me show you what that looks like. And here we go. So here it is. It stitched all this other part, and now it's just going to stitch this pink part. So it's going to do this outline, and once it goes around the outline, it will stop for you. It's not going to stop in slow redraw. It's just going to move to the next color, but I'm going to try to stop it when it gets up here. So your machine would stop at this point, and you would lay your fabric on top of there. And this actual design gives you an SVG file that you can send to your cutter, and I'll cover that a little bit later in our demo. And then you put your fabric down and you start your machine again, and now it's tacking it down. There you go. And so it's going to tack it all the way around. And then this particular design has some embroidery it does before it finishes. So it's starting to do the embroidery parts here. So I'm going to move those ahead a little bit. And then let me back up just a bit so you can see. Once it does all of the extra embroidery, it starts, it has some, let me see what it has under here. And let me zoom in so you can see, and down this way. So now you can see here is that right in the middle here, that is the tack down that we did. So your fabric is between this orange line and this orange line. So it's, and then the satin stitch is going to go over that edge and finish it off very nicely. So when I start this up, it's doing the first run of the zigzag stitch, the satin stitch, and then it's going to do the final one like that. All right, so that's the anatomy of a typical applique that you're going to find out in the marketplace. And we can recreate that same thing right here ourselves. So, you could do your own thing, which normally I do. I normally make my own appliques. I love to do that. And I also make a cut file that goes with that. So let me show you on this one. Let's see here. I have to open my, to go find my, here we go, my folder. All right, so this is the SVG, and I'm going to bring it in. I wouldn't need to bring this, well, and I don't know why they have this extra thing over here. I don't understand that. But this is actually your SVG that came with that design, and I'm going to move it to the center of my hoop. It doesn't matter. Well, it's not going to center because this is in the way. Let's get this out of the way. I don't understand why they put this in here, but we'll just delete it. All right, so I'm going to move this to the center of my hoop. Let's see what happens. There we go. All right, so this is an SVG file. So if I had a cutter that read SVG files, I could just take that SVG file, load it to my USB, or load it into my other cutter. If you have an off-brand cutter, not the edge cutter, so that's what you would do. You just take it to there. But since we have the Artistic Edge cutter, I'm going to come up here and turn on my cut technique, because I can tell, looking in my properties here, that there's no cut command here. There's cut work, which is different. There's no cut command. So I'm going to go up here and go to techniques, and I'm going to turn on cut, and then OK. And you'll notice in properties now, I have cut, and when I select cut, I have my cutter presets. And I can come in here and click on here and say, maybe I'm going to use a fusible web on the back of that, or I use Terreal Magic, so I would click the one I want. And then I'm going to send it to my cutter. So I would be attached. I'm not attached to my cutter at the moment, but I can get you there and show you what it looks like. So I'm going to go File, Export to Cutters. And then there are other cutters that work with our software. We can use the Silhouette, but not with a Mac. I'm on a Mac right now, so the Silhouette doesn't show here, but these are the other ones that we connect with. The Cricut Maker we do not connect with, but that will take that direct SVG file. So I'm going to use the edge, and I'm going to say connect, and it's going to tell me it's not going to connect, but it gives me this picture. So now this is what would cut on my cutter. And then I could take that fabric, and after it does the placement line, I could put this right in there. Okay, so someone's asking, this is a good question, what is a cutter? There are digital cutters out there that you put a little blade in, and you lay your fabric on a mat and run it through the machine, and it cuts that shape. So it would cut this shape for me, so I wouldn't have to cut it with my scissors or anything like that. They're really handy. There's a lot of things you can do with the cutter, and I've done some other videos so you can see the cutter. And we use the Artistic Edge digital cutter, but there's others out there in the marketplace. So you would just send this to your cutter, and it would cut that out for you, and you'd peel it off the mat and put it in your design, and you'd be all set with that. So that's pretty easy. Some of the designs now, the ones that are out in the marketplace, they're giving you the cut file for you. They're giving you an SVG file. So if you had the edge cutter, you would bring it in here. If you had any other cutter that we don't have, you would just take that SVG, don't bring it into the software, just load it onto your USB stick or transfer it to your machine and use it that way. Now there are die cutting machines out there too, like the AccuQuilt Go, and there's electronic ones, there's crank ones. Those have ready-made dies. So you have to use whatever shape they have for you. And they have some general shapes, squares, triangles, circles, things like that, that you can use. And then they have some specialty shapes. But here we can create any shape. All right, and we don't have to find a die. We can just create any shape and send it to a cutter. Now, if I was going to cut the fabric for my horsey, and let's see, why is he not showing up? Oh, there he was there. What was I thinking? There he is here. So let me open the horse. So this is the horse, and let me show you how I would find my cut file here. And again, let me see if I select. So there's the placement, and there's my tack down. So either one of these would be fine. I have a nice, and you can see when I click on them, this would be the tack down of my fabric. And this is the placement. So they're pretty much on top of each other, so they would be the same size. And they're well covered by that satin stitch there, so I wouldn't have to worry about that. But I don't have my cut technique turned on. You can see there's no cut technique over there. I would have to come up here and do cut, okay, pick cut here, go to my preset. Maybe I would use Terrio Magic this time. And then I would send the horse to my my cutter. Now, for the edge, I could just export to cutters. If I had a different cutter, I could come up here and do export to SVG. Do you see that right here? And then I could send it to a USB and take it to my off-brand cutter. All right, so Kay, this is what I was talking about here. If you have a design, any design that you want to cut the shape of, you can, some of them, this is already an applique, so I could use one of the lines that's already in here, okay? So if you purchase it in the hoop design that doesn't have an SVG, right, so if it didn't have an SVG, you could use one of the outlines that's in here and turn it into a cut file, all right? You could also print this out if you didn't have a cutter, and you could print it out, and then you can trace it onto your fusible web and then cut it out from there. Some of us don't have that, so you have that option too. Does that answer your question, Kay? Just let me know. And if you can't find an outline, maybe your piece doesn't have an outline, I'm going to do an applique where I'm going to make it from an embroidery and turn it into an applique. It's an embroidery that I don't know if I downloaded it somewhere or purchased it or it came from the machine, but I'm going to show you just like this one. This was an embroidery before I made it an applique. You have to use your auto border tool. And there's so much you can do. You're right, Peggy. This is going to be fun. There's so much you can do with your applique. All right, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to close the horsey. I don't need to save him. I'm going to close this one, and I'll close this one here. All right, so the next one I want to show you is I'm going to bring in a JPEG, and I'm going to turn it into an applique. So I'm going to use this here. This is a deer head that I found out there, and they're pretty popular. People like to make embroideries out of these and things like that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to need to auto-digitize trace to outlines, and then I'm going to, and it's kind of large, but I think I'm okay with it, and I'm going to say okay, and it's going to pop in here. I hope it, there it is. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the color limit at 2, and it's actually going to become stitches. I could do traces artwork, but most of the time people forget that's there, so we'll just hit trace, and because this is going to show you a couple other things that I think are important. So now it's on there, and I want to delete the white part. Now maybe I want to stitch this out like that with stitches, I don't know. But if I want to delete the white part, I can select it like that, and then I can see right here in my used colors down on the left side that just the white is selected. And then I could just X out and it would delete it. Now, if for some reason both of these were selected, all right, I would need to, let me go out here and I would, if they're both selected, let's select both. You can see down here they're both selected. If that happens, anytime you're working with a JPEG or a graphic, you can come in here and it's already grouped. It's not grouped, so it's asking me to group, but it would give me the option of ungroup, and it might give me the option of break apart or even shaping. When you want to do shaping, when you have two objects, and remember how sometimes when you remove one part, everything turns black. All right, so if you need sometimes you need to trim. You need that cookie cutter. And what I like to say, and it's not the technical part, it cuts your shape into the background so you can remove your shape easily. So you would come here and hit trim. This one is very easy because it came in as two parts, so I can just easily delete that. But there are some videos I did on graphics in the Skill Builder series. They're 9, 10, and 11, and I cover all the different ways to bring in graphics and what to do with them. So if you want to take a peek at that, you can do that too. So here he is. Now he is Stitches. If I go over here, he's a step fill. But you know what? I do not want to stitch all that out. That's a lot of stitching. Right down here, it's 33,000 stitches. And it's going to go back and forth. It's going to be thick. I don't know. It might be thick. I might not want it. So I'm going to go to, I'm in the fill, which is fine. And right here is my applique tab. And I'm just going to select applique. And it gives me the outline, and I'm going to delete my fill right now. And that's down here. I don't need the fill, so I'm going to X out the fill. And what you're seeing is the background graphic. So I'm going to come up here and go to View and Backdrop. I'm going to hide the background graphic. And there is my applique. So before I make any changes, I want to show you what this looks like in Slow Redraw. Well, let's select it and see. When I select it, you can see over here are my applique options over here. All right, and right now it's on, it's doing an E-stitch on there. Let's see. Hang on 1 second. Let me go back. I want to go back here for a minute. All right, let me go to outline because this will give me, okay, there we go. So when I chose applique over here, these things popped up first, and I can choose what type of edge stitch I want, and then I can adjust it. So I'm going to go back a step. I'm going to remove the inside, but you can't tell because I have to go to View and hide my backdrop. There we go. So there it is, and I left it on the E-stitch, which is blanket stitch. Let me just click off of there. So let's go see what that looks like in Slow Redraw. And I'm just gonna drag my circle across so we can see. So it must be doing a raw edge one that I've already cut, and I'm gonna cut it afterwards. It stitches. So that might not be the one that I want. So let's go back here. And we're going to go back to Fill and Applique. And right here, I can choose what I want for my applique. So let's do Fixed Satin. And then before I choose that, here are your choices. So I can cut my fabric after I embroider it. That would be the raw edge. I could cut it during embroidery. That's where I would have the, I would have a tack down, a placement, a tack down, and it would give me time to cut in between. This is if I had a pre-cut with glue, and here's the zigzag and E-stitch. So let's do during embroidery. This is the most common way everyone does their applique, most common on there. All right, so then I'm going to do Fixed Satin on there, and I'm going to delete my inside, and there we have it. It has the little outline on there. So let's go to Slow Redraw, and now I don't know why it's doing it this way. Normally it gives me all my steps. Of course, doing it live, it's going to not be helpful. All right, so, oh, you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to delete this one. Actually, I'm going to go back. And what I'm going to do is go back one more time. All right, so when it came in like this, I'm actually going to make my auto border right here. So I'm going to make a border, and it's going to go to the outside. Now, I did this earlier, and it went right to applique, so I don't know, you know, oh, I don't want that many. Why is this happening? Oh, because I have 4 there. Let's make this 1 and make that 0. There we go. All right, and I'm going to make it a different color so we can see it from the black that's there. And I'm going to delete my inside now. And I'm just going to move this to the side this way so we can see it over here. Well, maybe. That screen keeps getting in my way. There we go. All right, so here is the outline, and I should be able to go into my properties down here and pick applique. There it goes. So it fills it in with a fabric. And then over here I'm going to give it a satin, and I want it to be during embroidery. So I'm going to hit Fix Satin, and then I should be able to go to Slow Redraw, and I'm not worrying about that black part, and it should stitch this. Let's make this go. And once it gets done with the placement line, it'll do a jump stitch to the side. It looks like it leaves stitches. Only in Slow Redraw does it leave those stitches. In your machine, it just jumps away and stops, so you can put your fabric on top of this. So we're almost to that point. It's going to come around, and I'm going to try to stop it when it jumps away. All right. So it jumped. Do you see up here? Let me see if I can. It jumped over here, and it's going to start now the tack down. So I would be laying my fabric on here now, and now it's going to tack it down, and it's going to go all the way around again. And then when it gets to the top, it's going to jump out again. And then it's going to start the satin stitch around. And there it goes with the satin stitch. So sometimes with your graphic, you may have to make an outline for it to read. I don't know if it was reading the outline on when I first converted it or not, but sometimes you have to go and make the outline and work from there. Now, if I wanted to change anything in my satin stitch, maybe let's go back to here. So maybe I wanted to not do satin, but maybe something else. I'm going to go to outline, and satin is chosen. I can change the width of it here. Maybe I want to put it at I'm just going to make it really big here, 3.0 mm, so you can see. Maybe it is really big already. There. So you can make this wider if you want, your outline width. There we go. Or you can make a running stitch and then add a decorative stitch like that. And then you can play around with your decorative stitch. So there's my decorative stitch on there. So you have complete control, even though it says in the applique, when you're over here in applique, it says Fix Satin, it's meaning you're picking satin, you're picking E-stitch, or you're picking zigzag. These are almost the same. Zigzag is a little open, and it just gives you a quick catch to go get a zigzag stitch instead of going to satin and then changing the density of your satin. So you have those options that you could work with. Okay. All right. So if I was going to create this from scratch, so let me go back to this here. if I brought this in and I thought, you know, I don't want to use the applique feature, I'm going to make it myself, what I would do is I would come to my auto border, sorry, up here, and then I would make my first line right on the edge running, and I would select OK. And let's make that one a different color. We're going to come over here, and we're going to make it this pink here. And then I'm going to drag it to the side over here so we can see it. And let's get all this stuff off the way. Okay, there we go. So I can be close to the properties. And we'll close this. There we go. All right, so there is my outline of my design. Now this could be my placement. All right, that could be my first, the first stitch out, the placement, and I could go over here in properties and I could change the how many passes, the length of my stitch, any of that stuff that I want to do. So my placement line goes down, and now I want another line to tack down my fabric. So all I have to do is do a copy paste, and I need to change the color. When you pick the applique feature in the software, it takes care of all the stops, but when you create them yourself, if you're creating from scratch, each layer needs to be a different color. So I'm going to make this one green down, oh here, this nice turquoise. So now I have two lines on top of each other. There we go. So you can see I moved that aside so you can see there's my placement, and there would be my tack down. And let me put them back on top of each other. Then I need one more color, one more outline so that I can do my finishing stitch. So I would do, I could do paste, copy, paste, either way. Change my color. Let's change that one to this green here. And then on that one in properties, I might want a satin serial. And maybe I want to make my outline width 2.0. And let me click off of this over here somewhere. Hang on. There we go. There we go. So now you can see that part. Let me move this aside and we'll put the sequence window down. So we don't need to worry about that. That's just the one in the window. Here's my placement. Here's my tack down, and oh, those are the other ones. Here. So here they are here. My placement, my tack down, and my other one. Let's see what that looks like in slow redraw. So in slow redraw, it just finished the placement. Now I'm going to put my fabric. It stops because I changed colors. Oops, let me go back to this one. There we go. There's my placement. Then I put my fabric, and it's going to tack it down, and it's going to stop before the green one, and I will trim my fabric, and there you go. Now, right, so Candy's making a good point. When you're making your outlines for this, you can change the offset of them. So on this, let me go back. I'm actually going to delete some things out of here. Let me go back here because this is getting in the way. And I'll hide that. There we go. And let me get this one out of the way because it's just in the way. All right, and we'll bring this one back to the hoop. All right, so on this one, here's your placement. Your tack down really can be inside your placement line just a bit, okay? And you can actually change your placement line even in the preset applique. You can make it a zigzag stitch if you want. You don't have to, you don't have to, and then their zigzags are down here. Let me type in, here we go. So you could make that placement line a zigzag stitch, or the tack down, a zigzag stitch. Now I made it too wide for this, but just so you can see, there it is. Let me mirror it across. And then let me move this out of the way so you can see what's under there. All right, so here it is. Here's the placement line right there, the red. Then I put my fabric down, and here's my tack down. So this is a great tack down because it's going to tack your fabric just inside the placement line, and then you're going to trim. Okay, and you have to do a little bit of testing to find out how you want to do it. You can also use the offset here and set an offset to bring that line inside if you want. Actually, the zigzag brought it in for me, so I didn't have to do any offsetting. But when I bring let me bring the green back on top. So now, right now, my zigzag is showing, my tack down is showing underneath there. So I may have to change my outer stitch. Maybe I want it to be, this is going to be kind of wide, I think. There we go. A little bit wider. And maybe I need to offset the turquoise or make the turquoise smaller in width. So I could do that too. And get it to hide underneath there. So I could play with the sizing of that. Does that make sense to everybody on that? So even though you can do it all on your own, if you like to make all the stops yourself, or you can use the applique tab. And if you use the applique tab, you still have control of each of those lines. You just have to go, applique is a fill. You would have to go to outline and pick each of the lines that you want to work with, and you can make those changes. Okay, so you have the option of playing with all of that yourself. So let me show you one that's a little harder too. And I know we're all going to, whoops, excuse me for that. I don't know why it's doing that. There we go. So let's work with a children's artwork. So that's this one here. It's a JPEG. I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to auto digitize it. I think it's 6 colors. So I'm going to just change this to 6. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe 6. 5, 6, something like that. Let's do 6 and see what happens. Trace. Okay, so here's my design. I don't want that background, so I selected it. I can see over here, it's only the white selected. I can hit delete. I'm going to hide my backdrop because it's going to get in my way. All right, so this is all stitches. I'm going to move in and show you. It's all stitches. See that? Now this is a little kid's drawing. I think it's so adorable. And he did a couple of them, 1, 2, and 3, and I think they're so cute. But this back part here, that's, again, a lot of stitching. So I may want to make that into an applique. And when I click on it, I can see it's two parts. And I'm like, okay, I could do it that way. So I could select the top part. I can go to applique. And it turns it now into an applique. But I'm going to do satin. So I'm going to pick satin here. There we go. And you can see some things happening there, right? Let me click off of it. Some stuff is happening. You can see right here what's going on. I could do applique down here too. And satin. And you can see what's happening here too. So when you pick the applique, and this is all fixable, when you pick applique with something like this, it's going to want to finish your applique out with all of the, and make a complete outline. But you can fix that very easily. If you select your applique piece, and you can watch over here and edit, you can do edit nodes. When you move these nodes underneath here, let me just move them under. And we'll move these over a little bit. Now it's going to be, those zigzag stitches are going to go away, and it's going to be running stitches. You can see it changing over here, so you won't have those stitches under there. Now I could delete these totally like this, and then I could bring this down. Oh, wrong side, hang on. Got to get the right one. I've got to bring the line down this way. See how I'm doing that? And this one down here. This is a lot less work to do this. And it will look like, there we go. And get off of there. So it takes away that zigzag. Well, there's a little bit here. It takes away that zigzag that's there. So you would have to play around with your piece that way. All right, does that make sense? Give me some thumbs up if you understand. Oh, Jean, I'll show you that in a minute, how you how the offset works. What offset is when you have a line and you select offset, and to make it go inside, you would need a negative number, and it shrinks your line to fit inside, so you don't have to resize it yourself. It'll automatically resize it perfectly. So does this make sense on this one? So you would actually have two pieces of fabric if you did it this way. Down here, oops, let me grab that. Down here I could do the same thing. I could select my points like this and oh, I don't want the side ones, hang on. You could delete some of these, and it's messing up the eye a little bit, so probably I would play with moving my pieces in like this. Oh, it must be connecting with the eye portion. So you'd have to play. An easier way to do this, and this is what I would do. I'm going to undo this, so we have it back to like the beginning, if I can. All right, that's closest to the beginning as we can have. All right, so instead of doing this type of applique, what I could do is I could draw a border around here myself. You can't really do auto border because it's going to take these ones too, but I could use my drawing tool right here. And so I can make my shape just like this, going around. And I could make one whole piece of fabric, so I don't have to have all of this happening. And I'm just going to kind of do a quick one down here. Let me go to the bottom. So you would just kind of come along here like this, following your outline of your design. Well, I don't know if it would weld because they're not touching each other. Really, I mean, the pink is between, oh, I didn't need to do that. Let me back up here. I could just go straight across here like this. Oh, no, I can't. Hang on. Talk and work. No, I can't. So here we go. I'm going to do a shift and click so I get more of a square there. Same thing on this side. One here. And I'm just going to make a complete shape here, an outline. And then I can use that as my applique. All right, so there's the shape I'm going to use. I'm going to select it. And then I need to use I can use the applique feature right here now for this. So I can do, let's do this, applique. All right, and it's reading all this other junk underneath. So I'm going to take this and delete that. Let's see what happens. I'm going to delete this one because I don't need it. Ugh, that's a mess. Hang on. I'm going to start again. But so now I'm going to have one whole piece and I can put my embroideries on top of it. So let me back out and close this one. I'll convert it again because I think it'd just be easier to start with a fresh piece. So I have less going on. And we'll come over here. So, and Louise, you can do a lot, there are a lot of things you could do. You could try to weld it together. You could draw an outline like I'm doing. There's never one way to do things most of the time. There's always more than one way to work with your design. All right, so let's delete our outer part, and let me select him, and I'm going to take him out of the hoop. and just bring them over here because I just like to work outside the hoop. It just, for me, it's much easier. All right, we'll move this over. Here we go. All right, so I want to make the inside of this an applique. So I would just draw my outline. I can't really do an auto border because it's not one piece like that, and they're not quite touching. But, I mean, I might be able to bring one down closer and make them touch. But I do like to show that you can use your Digitize Outline Shape tool also in places like this and make this work here. So I could just kind of go around. We'll do it one more time. And I'm not going to stay right perfect on here because I'm just in a hurry. But normally I would just be nice and exact because this is a cute little, I love this little guy. And I don't have any little kids to draw for me. My artist is really an artist, and we can't do imperfect or just, this is perfect, I'll have to tell you. So here we go. So up here, up here, up here, and then on top. And there I have my shape. So I'm going to select it. And yep, I could move everything, but I'm going to leave it right there. I don't want to, I'm just going to leave them all right where they are and work from there. So I'm going to select applique for this. And I am going to delete the outline because I don't need the outline. And I'm going to move my applique to the top. All right, and then I'm going to delete, I'm going to select this color here. Let me see what happens when I select the yellow and I delete it. There we go. Okay, that worked out good. So now I have my applique behind him, and I have all my features on top. All right, but it's doing some funky thing right here. And if I look close, I might have, well, this one is actually reading some extra lines here. I'm going to delete this color here. It read an extra color, which isn't part of this design. So I'm just going to edit my design like this, select by color, and I'm going to delete that. There we go. All right. And now I want to make sure I'm picking this, and I want to do satin. And you can see up here, it left little spaces for the arms and the legs, and it did not make zigzags under here. You see that? By using a complete shape, it cut those holes. Now you can also, when you're doing this, make sure both of these are selected. You can do remove overlaps and say never, and it does a little bit more with that too. So let me see if we select all of this and I do never. Now it's made this all one piece. See how it's all one piece over here? So it won't try to stitch over there. So let me show you that. Let me go back because the way to see this is in slow redraw. So we'll go to slow redraw and watch what happens in slow redraw. It's going to stitch your a placement line, but it's going to leave the eye, make holes where the eyes are. So you really don't need that in there. So if you do the remove overlaps as never, it will not have to do this little inner part in here. So let's just stop that and we'll go back. And so you want to make sure you select all of it, both parts, and then remove overlaps to never. And now it's just going to have that nice little piece of fabric underneath, and then you have, and unless you want to cut away under the eyes, I wouldn't want to cut away under the eyes or the mouth. I would just want that to stitch on top. And then down here, do you see how it's going around here? You could leave that if you want. Or you could do edit nodes and you could bring it down so it runs behind here if you don't want that little bit showing right there. Okay. Does that make sense? So really, you know, there's lots of ways. I call this my trickery and wizardry. when you're working with applique, when I did, I'm going to see if I can get him. And I'll bring this down. I'm going to put the camera on so you can see this. I got my little spool guy, so. All right. So on this one here, he's a couple different appliques. I have an applique up here. I have the applique blue, and I have this. So this took a little bit of wizardry to, and I really wanted the blue to be all one piece. So I had to play around with remove overlaps. I had to do a little drawing of my own, and I did different things in different places. Up here, I used a pattern satin stitch. On here, I used the E-stitch on this part. So you can really, this is an applique on top of an applique, which is very interesting. So to play around with these, you just have to make sure you're not losing something as you go along. And even so, okay, so even on our little guy, even if you did this outer blue part as applique and you wanted this as applique, and when they were layered, it made extra stitches, like the lines under here. You could disregard those after you put your blue fabric on and then it stitches the tack down. It's going to be underneath this, so you don't really have to stress as much. But it is nice to make an applique that, really is like more professional looking. So it, you could do it all as one piece of fabric on there. Okay. So I really love applique for the fact that I can do giant things like this horse. I mean, I have to keep showing him because I love him so much. And I've always loved him since the very first time. But now that I have him on this giant pillow, it just makes me so happy. And I just, did the outline and made this applique. And then I just brought the embroidery to the top. And, always make sure you're aligning it in your sequence menu so that you have things going in the right direction. Okay, so let me show you if you have a ready-made applique that doesn't have a cut file. And I think I sort of talked about that, but I want to show you what one looks like. So let me go to back to the software, and I'm going to go to my browser, and I have this one here called Foxy. And this might be an OESD design, I think. Oh, let me move this to this side. I'm sorry. I have this little extra window I have to keep up. All right, so you can see over here in the sequence that there are some outlines here on this. And let's look at this in slow redraw. It's not going to have it has color stops, but it's not going to have the jump out like our applique will show you in slow redraw. Okay, let's see, we'll go here. All right, so it's going to stitch the first part here. So there's your placement line for that inner part of the head and the body, and then it goes to the tack down. So it's going to finish this, and then I'm going to lay my fabric down on top of it. And then I'll put my fabric down, and then it will go and do the tack down. Once it finishes the tack down, I can trim my fabric. And then this design, if I'm going to cut it in place, this design will go on and do this green, and then the tack down of the ears. It has a lot involved in it, and then it has the finishing here. So it stitches a couple times over your fabrics. It's just the way their creator worked. So these outlines here are great for picking for your cut files. All right, and you just have to think about where they are so you know what color you're putting there. And you can decide which one you do. A lot of times I'll take the placement line as my cut file, and we can see here there's the where the placement line is landing, right in the middle. Here is the tack down, and they have their tack down just right on top. Now I could change this. I would have to convert to curves and change it. But this is a nice wide zigzag, so I don't think I would have any trouble. And I would definitely use a fusible web on this one. There's little pieces. So I would use fusible web on there, okay? All right, so yeah, applique that's larger, this is a good question. Applique that's larger than your hoop is, you can't really split an applique like that because of the fabric that's going to, the way it's going to stitch, and the fabric's going to be on there. At least I think so. I mean, let's look at the horse. Let me bring in the horse again. Where is he? Here he is. So if he was larger than my hoop, I don't know where I would, like this line, the outside zigzag is all one, should be all one stitch. So if you had to cut that, it really doesn't work because your fabric's going to be covering this. Unless you had places where you could merge it, like maybe you could fake it underneath here, okay? You might be able to do something like that. I mean, there's ways to think about it. I mean, you might be able to cut them right here too, all right? Because this goes all the way through, and that the seam of the fabric would hide if you had to make a seam of fabric. So I'm not going to say it's not possible. It's just harder, okay? It's just harder. And when you're thinking about applique, you have to think about, what I want to say is like perspective. And let me put the camera back on here really quick because we're almost done. I don't know where my camera thing went there. There we go. You have to think a little bit about the perspective of where things are going to lay in your design for applique. Like I've done some applique of flowers where there's all these little petals, and I have to think about what's going to stitch first. So probably my outer petals are going to stitch first, and the littler ones are going to go on top, on top, on top till I get to the center. So that's, you have to kind of think about where things go, and you can move them, use your sequence window. You can move them to put them in the right direction. I do a big applique every year for a friend for a flag, and it's always, she has a friend draw the flower for me, and then I convert it to an applique. I used to do it by hand, like I would draw it out, and then I would cut the pieces, and I would use my sewing machine and do the zigzagging around and around. It would take me days. Now I, spend an hour or two digitizing it, maybe 3, depending on the design. Then I take it and I go ahead and cut it, and it works out. I stitch it in the machine, and it's perfect. So it really saves, applique in the hoop really saves you a ton of time. So there is that. Let's see. So if you had a design that wasn't an applique, kind of like my horsey, let me show you. I have a small one I could show you really quick before we end today because we're just right at the top of the hour. And I'll go back to software really quick. I have this little design. I call it pumpkin pie. It's just a little pumpkin. Here we go. And I'm not sure where this came from. It could have come from, I don't know, OESD or some design site that I got it. So this part here, the orange part, I want that to be applique. I don't want to use that part there. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to move it over here for a moment so I can create my outline for it. All right, so there it is. All I have to do is come up here to convert, and I can do auto border to the outside, 1 repeat, and OK. Now you'll see it went up in here. See that little spot where it went up in there? So I can edit that out just like this, edit nodes, and I could select that part and delete it. And now I have a complete outline. Let me delete this the inner part. Let's see here. Let me just delete that so it's out of our way. I'm not sure why. Oh, I know why it won't delete, because it's part of the other design. Okay, so the outline is the same color, so I'm going to make this a different color. Let me select it. And let's make it a different color. I'll just make it this color here. All right, so this what's great about my pumpkin design is it already has all the satin stitching. I probably don't have to add any satin stitching because look at all of this that's around here. All I have to do is make a cut file of this and then remove these stitches. So I made my outline. That could be my cut file. If I wanted to edit this, it's got a, you know, maybe I wanted to make it a little smoother. I would take out some of these here and just make it more smooth going around so I don't have to cut, you know, a jagged piece. So that would be my cut file, and I could cut the fabric out, or I could add a line in. Say I wanted to cut it in place. So what I could do is, let's bring this up here. Let's say I don't have a cutting machine. So maybe I won't do a cut file. So here's my outline, my placement line. Of course, to make that tack down, all I have to do is do a copy and a paste, and that's down here. I'm going to change the color of it. Let's make it like this purple color. And then I'm going to bring that up here. There we go. So I'm going to have my, well, it combined those. Why is it combining those? Let's go here. There we go. It has my placement and then my tack down. And then I don't need this one here, so I could delete that because I don't need to stitch it. Then it's going to stitch this, and then it's going to stitch the rest of it. Does that make sense? I think this is my favorite tool. You know, it really is. All right, so let's go see what that looks like in slow redraw. Slow redraw is such a friend. And of course I can, you know, change, you know, this one here could actually be a little zigzag if I wanted to. Let's go to properties out of colors. What's going on here? There we go. I could make this a little zigzag. Let's see, put a Z there. Let's try that one. It might show, but we're not going to worry about it. All right, and let me bring it back in here so it's in line with all of that. You can see here how that's looking. This needs to be over here too. And this, are they all? Yeah, they're all here. All right, so let's go to slow redraw and we'll take a look at this. I love slow redraw too because it shows me everything that's going on. So here's that placement line. It's going to do the placement line and it'll stop because it's another color coming after that. I lay my fabric down. Now it's going to do my tack down. Okay. And then I'm going to trim my fabric, and then it's going to do all this stitching. I don't even have to add any satin stitching to this. I could if I wanted to, but I don't even have to because this design has everything I need. Let's go up here. And it finishes it out just like that. So now I have an applique. Oh, you're welcome, Teresa. You know, if I wanted this to be really giant, like for the centerpiece of a table runner or a tablecloth, making it an applique is so much nicer. Because you can put, and then you know, if you wanted to, you could be really tricky. You could make these different colors in here. If you wanted to make your pumpkin a little dimensional, maybe a bright orange, you know, different color oranges in there, or maybe different color printed fabrics. So, you know, you are the one in charge of what you do. Just create these shapes as your outlines and then go from there. So let's go back to the camera. All right, I think that's everything. You guys asked some great questions today. Hopefully this will expand your knowledge on doing applique and you'll be more comfortable even working with a ready-made applique like a Kimberbell or an OESD, and how to find the cut files, how to make cut files from that if you wanted to. And also how to take some of your own embroideries that you have maybe in your machine or that you purchased and turning them into applique when you want them to be large. You know, there's so, you know, it really opens up. See, I always tell people I'm not an artist, so I like to use something I have and create with that and make it something else. So you can really expand your knowledge on that part of it. All right. And I just want to point out on Thursday, I'm back at 3 p.m. over on the Janome Sewing Machine page. I don't know if you saw me last Thursday. I was on location. I had a little bit of Wi-Fi issue at the very end. I was out at Hershey at the Hershey Resort Campground. So I did my live on location there, so that was quite fun. But I'll be Thursday, and I'm going to be talking, I think, about graphics. I can't remember. I think that's what I meant to write it down before I did my notes today. But I think we're going to be talking a little bit more about graphics. So if you want to see that, that's 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time over on the Janome Sewing Machine page. As always, I will link that back over to the AD page so you can watch it later. It's under the guides, and it's in the topic that says, I think it says live videos 2021. So you can see them in there. And on Saturday at 11 a.m., I'm back at the Janome Sewing Machine page again with another little lesson of something. I can't, on the top of my head again, I can't remember what it is. Isn't that terrible? So I'll be back at 11 on Saturday for that. All right. So I think I'm going to let you guys go. Can you touch on something, what Mirror Stitches does? Okay, so let's do that really quick. I'll make a little shape here. So Louise is asking about mirroring stitches. So if I create this, and let me just delete the inside. And if we're working with a decorative stitch, let me see if this one will, and let me zoom in. Okay, so here you have mirror, and along, it made it go in a different direction. Okay, across, well, that's not a good one for across and both. So let me find another design. Let's go here. Let's put this back at none and find one that's going to show a little bit more fun stuff. Maybe this one. All right, so this one, you could do it along, so it's keeping it along the line, and then here it's going across the line to the inside, and then here it's doing both. It's sort of like a mirror image of the stitch itself. Did you see it change when I was at across? They sort of, it's like mirror image left to right, okay, in a design. Does that make sense, Louise? Yeah, so this video gets saved under the guides, under AD Skill Builder, and it'll be number 18. A giant panel you need to I need to applique and would need to rehoop. It's gonna, I'm not gonna say no, but you'd have to cut your applique somehow because you have to rehoop. I'm not sure how that would work. I think it would work. You know me, I would probably take a challenge and try it, and maybe make a small piece and use a smaller hoop and just cut your design and see if you can hoop it like that. If you because I don't know how that's going to work. You have to straddle fabric and probably. Someone asked another question. Yes, Jean. I covered that in the very beginning, how to take a JPEG and turn it into a applique. I think the only limit on applique would be the size of your hoop, though we're all inventive, and maybe we could figure out how to split it and put it in two hoops. When you split a design, you have to hoop the one, stitch it out, then you have to move it to the next one and align it and stitch that one. So with applique, they're going to have that fabric in there. So you have to figure out, how you deal with that fabric and the alignment there. So it's an interesting challenge, and maybe one of you will figure that out, and maybe in my spare time I will. But if you guys work on that, why not? Let's see. There's one back here I wanted to see. I don't know if I answered it. Okay. Would love a hands-on session. What do you mean by that, Marcia? Isn't this hands-on enough? Isn't this hands-on enough? Let's see. I don't do, one of the things I could probably ask, I did this last year a couple times. I did a class on Saturday where I taught the procedure and you guys worked at your homes. And it was a little hard because you would have to, it's like this. I do all the talking. You would have to, I would take breaks, and sometimes people would get lost and we'd catch them up and that kind of thing. So that's a hard way to do it unless I did something with Zoom or GoToMeeting. So I just don't know on that how that would work. Maybe I could do a class, but maybe that's what you're thinking about, Marty, is something where you guys work while I'm teaching. And I could always do something like that. Let's see. Can you mirror stitches? Videos saved. Yep, they're all saved to the page. Uh-oh. Oh, I didn't switch the camera. Thank you. Oh God. You know what? Sometimes my blonde hair gets the best of me. All right, let me show you the mirror image thing. It's so silly. Here we go. All right, so here's one design, and it's set at a cross. And if we do none, it's back there. If we do, let's do a cross, it takes it to the inside. All right. Does that make sense now that you saw it? Sorry, everybody, I didn't have my camera ready. Oh, okay. So Candy was saying I did the class, and she found it worked best, the projects, when I did them slowly. So I could think about that again, and I'll put the camera back on because I think I'm done demoing. Let me see if I can find the little tab here. So if you guys are interested in that, if we did a Zoom, you guys would all be on the screen. I could see you, you could see me. Sometimes that gets a little complicated. I'm not sure the whole of me demoing software and Zooming at the same time. There's some, with streaming, that sometimes is a little difficult. But I could do it like this, and I did it this way before, where I taught something and I just taught slower. So like, let's say we were doing applique. I would probably post a design that everybody's going to convert, and we would work through the steps of making it. And then if we wanted to, you guys could stitch it out from there. Would that be something, if there's a topic that you want me to teach like that, let me post to the page, maybe a topic class. And that way I can see how that would work, and we could maybe set something up with that. Okay. Yeah, see, and a lot of people just follow these. They watch these and they stop them when they need to, and they move on. The drawback with the class part of it is when you type in, I'm lost, I take a break, and then I have to say, okay, so what part are you lost on? And you have to type in and tell me, and then I have to, and then we move from there. So it's a little, sometimes it's harder, and so those people who can, it's just like a classroom. Those who want to work ahead have to wait. And that could be frustrating. So, it's doable, but whatever. Okay, so, all right. So I'm going to let everybody go because we're a little after 12 today. I'll see you later in the week, hopefully, either Thursday or Saturday, if you can pop back in. But as I said, the guides at the top of the page, we have our blue banner where it says guides. Click there. All the videos are saved under there. The AD Skill Builder, the AD Create It, the videos I do live over on the Janome page, over the Janome Sewing Machine page, and then any videos that we've posted that a developer posts are there. They're all organized. There's a whole section on the cutter. So, and there's all of our last year videos. Those would be a hoot to go back and watch how much we've changed in what we do. So I'm going to let everybody go and have a great day. I'll check the messages right after lunch. And if there's any questions I missed, I'll be sure to answer them. If you have continued questions, just post them to the page. We're glad to help you. And I want to see your appliques on the page now. I'm challenging all of you to at least do one applique and post it. All righty. Have a great one, everybody. Thanks for popping in. Bye-bye.